All these recordings will be available on our YouTube channel, by the way. So, chapter number 3, hardware. For all those who don't know me, I'm Maz, and I have a top in Pakistan distinction in computer science. And I feel like that after preparing for that specific subject, CS is a subject that which is not that difficult, but it isn't something a lot of people know how to study the right way. It's important that you understand that every topic requires a specific skill. Now, your chapter number 3 is basically divided into three main parts. There's this first section which deals with all your von Neumann architecture. Okay, so basically, you study about how does the computer internal circuitry work, how does it execute different and multiple sort of tasks at once, what are the whole mechanism behind when you press a button, the computer understands it, and then it goes and and that specific action is being executed. That comes under the very first part, which we are inshallah going to be discussing today. Then comes the second part, which basically discusses the input-output devices. Now, I know a lot of you might be using the harder education book, and I wanted you all to understand this one thing, that you do not need to memorize the working of or any input or output device. This is something which a lot of students are being told again and again, that you need to memorize stuff. How does a mouse work? How does a keyboard work? But it's not like that. And I will be showing you that through the official Cambridge syllabus. So 2026 syllabus. Okay. So we're going to be looking at how the examiner wants us to prepare. Not according to the book. Because आपके जो book होती है, that includes a lot of stuff which is only for the purpose of understanding. For this reason, I also have an official email from Cambridge examination, which I will inshallah later on share with you guys on the group. उसके अंदर it's clearly mentioned that you all are only required to know कि यार इनपुट आउटपुट डिवाइसेस आप लोगों ने कहाँ पे यूज करनी है, किस तरीके से यूज करनी है, ये आपको पता नहीं होना चाहिए कि what's the working behind it. Now, in the previous course, like the one before 2023, you were required to know the working. So now look up here. This is your official syllabus. So your IGCSE and O-level syllabus is 100% identical, so you don't need to worry about के अलग है. इसके अंदर if we look up here, this is chapter number 3.1, which we are going to be discussing today. Iske under, if you go down 3.2, it's clearly mentioned up here that candidates should be able to understand what is meant by an input device and why is it required, which basically means that you all should be aware of what these input devices are and where are we required to use them. So it's not stated anywhere in the syllabus that how does it work. So now when you open up your harder education book, you're going to see that there are long paragraphs related to how does a barcode scanner work, how does a mouse work, how does a speaker work. None of that is in your course. And it's important because in my previous batch, the October-November one kid was literally memorizing it. And it's something you don't need to memorize. Inshallah, tomorrow we're going to be doing 3.2 questions. आपको अच्छे से पता लग जाएगा how does the examiner want us to prepare for it. So हम वो वहाँ पे देखेंगे. Today our focus is only going to be around this topic. So we're going to study what's in the CPU, how does it execute stuff, what's fetch execute cycle all about. And you would have noted if you're taking the classes regularly that I again and again sort of emphasize the fact that you should be taking the syllabus alongside you. So whether you plan on joining my course or not, whatever subject it is, always when you study a topic, go and open up the syllabus and uske andar अच्छे से देखो कि यार, did I study this? Okay. And then the examiner himself is also providing, him or herself is also providing you with the notes and guidance. Do I know this? Do I know this? Okay, I know this. Maybe sometimes there is a possibility you miss upon something जो कि शायद syllabus में हो. And then you might be like, sir, this hasn't been tested for years. Why will it come now? But because it's in the syllabus, there is a possibility it might get tested on the next exam. So to be on the safe side, it's really important that you always ensure that you go through the syllabus. So before moving on and starting it officially, let me just send one last message. We are starting off. We are starting off. Here's the link. Here is the joining for all those who just joined in. यहाँ पे हमने कर दिया, and let's start here. Okay, so let's start with the first question. Any questions till now, or should we start off? All right, seeing none, let's directly jump on to the first question. So this question is from May, June 2015. it's going to be testing the crucial concepts which are there in your syllabus even right now. So if there is any concept which has been removed, usko hum nahi karenge. So this question says that one of the key features of von Neumann computer architecture. Now, what was von Neumann computer architecture? So what happened was that previously, aapke computers, like when they were originally created, it had this function that it cannot store data. So like if I have a circuit right like this, and let's say it does some function, you always had to provide it some sort of an input. Like आपने अगर letter A print करना है, there used to be like cards of the word A maybe, and वो आप plug in करते थे into the computer, and then your computer used to execute it, and then onto the paper maybe A gets printed, or maybe on your computer screen A आ गया. But the problem was the moment you remove this card, and let's say because you wanted to input B, एक time में A की card जा सकते, so the moment you do plug in the B card and take out the A card, you're going to see it's going to execute it again, and यहाँ पे A की जगह directly B आ जाएगा. So the problem with the computer was that your computers originally were not able to store data, which was a very big issue, because apparently at this point, almost all the things which we are having on our laptops are stored somewhere. It's stored in the memory, right? But what if you cannot store anything? आप कोई game नहीं खेल सकते, आप कोई software नहीं install कर, you cannot store any of those documents which you might be using for your schoolwork. So what happened was that in towards 1961, Neumann, a scientist, came up, a computer scientist, and he introduced the model of stored memory. So what he did was he was like, why not create a mechanism where you have a CPU, but we link the CPU to something known as memory, and we can lock both of these things under a single device, and इनको हम connect कर देते through multiple wires, which we then used to call as bus. Now, this is a very simple, straightforward model, but it's not like that. इसके अंदर बाकी काफी चीजें आती हैं, which are known as registers. Now, what are registers? Registers are sort of many other components of which store some sort of details regarding the execution of programs. So, like अगर मैं ये बोलूं कि आपने next आपका data कहाँ पे stored है, so that's stored in a register known as MAR. Where is the data which is currently being read? Data किस register में भी MDR के अंदर stored. So all of these stuff which are storing data for the execution of a specific command is known as registers. Say now, these classes are not meant to taught the concept. I did share the recorded lectures of my October-November batch on my YouTube channel. I can reshare the link with you guys too here in the class. If you guys want, you should go and watch the whole playlist. It covers everything in very, very great depth, all the way from the very start till the end. Inshallah, just 1-2 classes of chapter 3 are left. तो वो उसके ऊपर inshallah कल परसों तक upload हो जाएगी. I've shared the link in the chat box. You guys can look at that. So now we're going to be looking at this question. Now it says that one of the key features of von Neumann architecture computer is that it uses buses. Okay, makes sense. And we have 3 buses in the course, and 3 descriptions are shown below, and we just need to connect them. So address bus comes from the word address. So ये आपने ये बताना है कि यार it is something जो कि addresses carry करे. So if we look up here, this is saying that the bus carries signals used to coordinate the computer activity. No, address to नहीं आ रहा. The bidirectional bus is used to exchange data between the processor, memory, and input-output device. No, addresses to नहीं आ रहा. The unidirectional bus carries signals related to memory addresses between processor and memory. Which basically means the answer to the very first point, address bus, is basically this. Why? Because आपका address bus is that specific route. It's like a path on which your computer transmits and transfers addresses between your processor, between your memory. So हमने जो originally model बनाया था यहाँ पे, let's say, yeah, yes, Hafsa, do you have a question? If you guys have any question, you guys can send it in the chat box. So yeah. All right, so like देखो, originally we studied that we have a CPU which does all the processing part, and then we have something known as memory, right? So your memory constitutes stuff like your hard disk or maybe SSD and things like that. अब दरमियान में what if I'm like, bro, हमने एक wire से connect कर दिया दोनों को, and I'm like, bro, your CPU, you come up from your school and you're like, I want to play Red Dead Redemption 2, RDR2, and now you open up your computer. Yeah, sure, I can reshare the document, of course, after the class में भेज दूंगा. Now, after you come back from school and you open up your computer and आप RDR2 button पे click करते हैं, icon पे, your CPU is going to be like, okay, you want to launch this, but where is the file stored? Now, your file isn't stored in the CPU, right? It's in the memory. So, अब आपकी CPU से memory तक address, like who's going to tell the person that you need to go through this path and through that path to access the specific game in the memory? It's your address bus. See, so your address bus, it basically is a unidirectional bus, which basically means कि यार it goes in one direction. So it's a one direction bus. Yeah, either se udhar ya udhar. So it only goes in one direction, and it basically carries computer signals which store memory addresses. So like where is RDR2 stored, where is maybe some other file stored, and all those things. See? And where does it go from? It goes between your processor and memory. The second one is control bus. Now what control bus does is कि यार अब मैं एक बात बोलूं कि आप लोगों में से like when I was teaching it to the class, I was like maybe मैं आपको एक example दूं कि for instance we have Inshal in the class, okay, Inshal, and then let's say we have Saad in the class, okay. And what I tell you, the two of you, is that I need you guys to make biryani, okay. Now what happens is Saad goes to the market to get stuff. And Inshal, because she's good in cooking, she's like, okay, let me chop onions and मैं बनाती हूँ biryani. Say, now I want both of you to work simultaneously to ensure that the biryani is done within 30 minutes. Say, kya baat hai? That's great to know. That's great to know. Yes, Hassan. Sir, if it's unit, does that mean you can only go from CPU to memory and can't go back? देखो, if it's in one direction, इसका ये मतलब है कि एक time के अंदर वो एक ही direction में जाएगा. Which yes, you are correct. यार वो CPU to memory ही जा रहा है. It basically means कि यार आपके एक time के अंदर addresses are being, ये जो मैं अपने क्लास में भी पढ़ा रहा था, it was pretty confusing back then too. But the point here to understand is कि यार जो आपके address bus होती है, it carries address at once from either CPU to memory or from memory to CPU. सही है? Usually it's CPU to memory. तो होता ही है कि इस तरीके से नहीं हो सकता कि when I say like maybe at one moment I'm carrying data address from my CPU to the memory, and at the same time there is a function which is also carrying address from the memory to the CPU. So by unidirectional, it's important that you understand this point कि इसका मतलब ये है कि एक टाइम में डेटा का जो एड्रेस है that is either going from the CPU to the memory or from the memory to CPU. The word unidirectional means one direction, एक डायरेक्शन में जा रही है, मल्टी डायरेक्शन ही है. लेकिन अगर हम ऊपर देखते हैं, यू हैव दिस बाई डायरेक्शनल वन. बाई डायरेक्शनल का ये मतलब है कि एक टाइम के अंदर उधर भी जा रहा है एंड एक टाइम के अंदर इधर भी जा रहा है. फॉर योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट आप इसको इस तरीके से समझ लो कि यूनिडायरेक्शनल बस का ये मतलब है कि इट ओनली गोज फ्रॉम सीपीयू टू मेमोरी. सही है? आप ये एज्यूम कर लो कि आपके एड्रेस के जो बस जा रहे हैं, नो नो, these are different. These are different from serial transmission and all that. Unidirectional is basically something which explains the direction of the bus. Say, so for your understanding, आप इसको इस तरीके से समझ लो कि अगर address bus, if the address bus is unidirectional, so आप ये समझ लो कि if it is going from the CPU to memory, is it possible that it goes the other way around? No. आप बस ये बोलो, हमने unidirectional, okay, फिर से बता दो. देखो, अगर यूनिडायरेक्शनल में बोलता हूं किसी बस को, if address bus is unidirectional, this means that the data can only travel in one direction. Uni means one. Say, so this basically, क्या बात है, जबरदस्त अफसर, that's great to know. पहले ये सुनो, this was a good point by the way raised by Hassan, that's great. But शुरू में फिर बता देता हूं. So you have your CPU and then you have memory. When I say that a specific wire is unidirectional, आपने इसको ये समझ लेना है that this means that data can only be traveling from one to the other direction. आप other way around नहीं जा सकते. So like the memory has no reason to put an address onto the bus अगर उसने CPU को कुछ बताना. Like इसका ये मतलब हुआ कि अगर मैंने कोई चीज गेम खेलनी है, तो जब तक मेरा CPU नहीं बोलेगा ना कि I want to access the address, your memory does not have the permission to send address to the CPU. For that reason, we say that address bus is unidirectional, which basically means that your CPU has the only right to carry addresses from its CPU to the memory. So आप other way around addresses नहीं भेज सकते. Is this clear now? So the point which you stated, Hassan, that's correct, that if it's unidirectional, it means that it can only go from CPU to memory and it cannot go the other way around from memory to CPU. Which also means कि it doesn't mean कि यार आपके CPU के पास एड्रेस नहीं आएगा. इसका सिर्फ ये मतलब है कि यार मेमोरी अपनी तरफ से एड्रेस नहीं भेज सकता. इट्स लाइक जब तक मैं आपको कॉल ना करूं कि यार मेरा एड्रेस आ रहा है, आप मुझे एड्रेस बताएं, तब तक आपने खुद ये नहीं करना कि यार आप उधर से आके मुझे चीजें भिजवाने लग जाओ. आपने नहीं भिजवानी. Until or unless I personally tell you guys or the CPU commands the memory कि मुझे एड्रेस बताओ, तब तक data cannot be, the address cannot be transmitted the other way around. समझ गए? Is this clear now, Hassan? Perfect. So now continuing, अब हमने second ये पढ़ रहे थे बिरयानी की बात. So बिरयानी की बात ये थी कि what if I tell you like you're chopping onions, सही है इंशाल्लाह, and then Saad is going to the market to get chicken. But because I want both of you to complete the whole thing in 30 minutes, what I do is कि आप दोनों ना एक कॉल पे भी लग जाते हो एक साथ. एंड आप एक दोनों एक साथ नहीं इंश्योर कर रहे होते हो कि ओके यार मैंने अनियंस काट लिए, चॉप कर लिए, ओके यार मैं मार्केट तक पहुंच गया, ओके मैंने ऑयल डाल दिया, आई गॉट द चिकन. सो व्हाट हैपेंस इज दैट द मोमेंट Saad reaches the kitchen with chicken, Inshal is done with the all basic preparation, and she just adds that chicken onto whatever utensil she's using to cook biryani. See, hua kya? Because they were on call and they were sort of no, zinda matlab proper halal mulki. See, but the moment they reach and they start cooking, you're gonna note कि यार दोनों बड़े synchronized थे. Which means कि यार जितने में साद मार्केट से मुर्गी लाए इतने के अंदर आपके जो अनियंस थे, टमाटर थे, they were all fried. Which means कि यार हमने टाइम जाया नहीं किया. This word is what we call this process synchronization. So in computer science we call this synchronization कि यार आपके कोई delays नहीं आ रहे, सब कुछ एक manner के अंदर हो रहा है. So when computers have functions where I might be like, okay, I want to play something and at the same time मैं कोई और function भी कर रहा हूँ, तो जो एक time के अंदर आपके multiple चीजें हो रही होती है, how does the computer ensure that your computer processes are done in the right way without any sort of delays, without any sort of halts? So to ensure that, your computer makes use of control bus, which ensures कि यार आपके multiple functions are synchronized. कि आप क्या I mean, नहीं, these are important. This is important. Say so for your control bus, it's important कि आपके जो भी computer के functions हैं वो synchronize रहे. So now coming back to the point, control bus क्या है? So control bus basically is this one, which is talking about how it carries signals to coordinate the computer's activity. And when we say coordinate the computer activity, this basically means that your multiple activities are synchronized. Now, at some point in your exam paper, they might make use of the word synchronize. But at the same time, they can also make use of different words to ensure, which tells the fact that yaar aapke multiple GG. You have a question, guys? All right, seeing that. So back to everyone. So आपके जब भी कंप्यूटर के अंदर आपने सिंक्रोनाइजेशन की बात हो या कोई भी ऐसे हो in which we are trying to make sure that the whole stuff is done in the right way, it's making use of control bus. Important word. Say, and now finally, data bus comes from the word data bus, and it is basically that specific wire or that specific bus which helps you with the transmission of data. And this is bidirectional. अब आपको ये याद होनी चाहिए कौन सी bidirectional और कौन सी नहीं है. Bidirectional means that at the same time data can go from CPU to memory, and at the same time data can grow from memory to CPU. इसका ये मतलब हो से. So it's bidirectional bus is used to exchange data between processor, memory, input output device. Now ये काफी basic model था. इसी के दरमियान आपको input output का model भी मिल सकता है, which basically means that what if I tell you that आपने ना एक keyboard के ऊपर आप WASD दबाते हैं. So when you WASD आप वो करते हैं तो उसके बाद आपके inputs, those are counted as inputs. So when you press W, the person or character moves ahead. When you press S, it goes back and stuff like that. So we're done with this question. Now we're going to be looking into the part B of the same question, which is talking about fetch execute cycle. Now, what's fetch execute cycle? Now, fetch execute cycle is that specific. So you just be okay, yeah. So this was basically the last one, the database one, this one, or control bus. Inshallah, control bus or database. Last one, okay. So the last one was database. Database basically means कि what if I tell you कि यार okay, अब मैंने एक गेम खेली है Minecraft. अब Minecraft को जब भी मैंने कोई चीज execute करनी होगी तो definitely I need to get that data into my CPU. But you know that your data Minecraft के जो game files हैं, the files are in the memory. So how does your computer transmit the data from your memory to the CPU? उसके लिए जो दरमियान में रास्ता बनाया जाता है which allows the data to go like this 1 0 1 0 1 1 all the way from memory to your CPU is what we call as the data bus. Now data bus is bidirectional, which basically means कि एक ही टाइम के अंदर या आपके एक टाइम ना भी हो, your data can basically go from your CPU to the memory and also from the memory to the CPU. Which means कि अगर CPU at the same time बोल दे कि okay, you go and you press the save button, आपने save button दबा दिया while playing the game, आपने guys, एक second. Just give me a minute. एक second. Just give me a minute. All right. So now we are all fine. Say, so back to where we were. So yes, bro, you can ask a question in the chat box and I will get back to it. Say, so now I'm talking about how. Yes, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. This concept does apply when game is auto saving. So I'm like, okay, आप कोई game खेल रहे हैं and you want to save the file. Now when you want to save the file, अब वो saving वाले part तो आपके CPU में हो रहा है, right? आपके CPU save करे एक file को. And the moment you press the save button, आपके CPU से command जाता है to rewrite something in the memory. So you see, at the same time, data is going from one part of your memory to the CPU, and at the same time, data can also go from your CPU to memory. Thus, we call this sort of bus as bi-directional. Yeah, I have removed him. Where is Arif Gamer? Yeah, I've removed him. Don't worry. He's no longer in the meeting. Don't worry. See, we are all done. Perfect. So is this clear? Who asked the question? Inshal, is this clear? If you guys have any question, just ask off. Say, I really appreciate asking questions because अगर आपके questions जितने ज़्यादा आप लोग पूछोगे, इतना ही आप लोग को फायदा होना. Say, so now going on, we're now be looking into question number 2. Now, this question number 2 is basically discussing von Neumann fetch execute cycle. Now, what's fetch execute cycle? It is the basically whole mechanism of how your computer has a specific process, and उस process को आपका computer fetch कैसे करता है from the memory. How does it decodes it? By decodes, I mean like how does it break the problem? Say, and then finally, guys, you all are, by the way, yaar, just a minute. I need to set some settings. Yeah, perfect. So focus on the class, guys. This is for you guys. See, so now back to where we were. So von Neumann fetch execute cycle is that method in which what happens is कि आपका एक process होता है. You need to talk about how it's fetched, then how did it decode it, and finally, how is it being executed. So we're going to be looking over that, and inshallah उसको हमने अभी detail के साथ discuss करना है. सही है. So अब होता क्या है? सबसे पहले आपका कंप्यूटर क्या करता है? हमारे पीसी होता है, there is this register which is known as program counter. The program counter is that part. Yeah, sure. I'll get back to it. Hafiz, by the way, this recording will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. So don't worry. Even if you missed it, you can just rewatch the first 10-15 minutes from the channel and आपको अच्छे से समझ आ जाएगी. See, because we are short on time, I don't want to miss on questions. So we're going to be continuing doing the questions and you can watch the recording later on. I will share it in the group. If you're not in the group, just let me know. मैं add कर दूँगा. See? So now, होता ये कि when you have a computer program, उसके अंदर सबसे पहले there is something known as program counter, PC. And this is something which you're going to be hating because I personally hated this a lot. But this is one of the most boring chapters. You're right, man. But अब होता ये है कि you have something known as program counter. Program counter, this stores the address of the next task, address of the next instruction or task. So if I'm like, okay, bro, I am telling one of you guys कि यार okay, अब आपका काम ये, let's say मैं हाफिज को बोल देता हूँ, हाफिज अब्दुल समद, whatever it is, my bad. But what if I tell हाफिज कि यार okay हाफिज, I want you to do one thing. What I want you to do is कि जब मैं क्लास में एंटर हो जाऊं और मैं क्वेश्चन कंप्लीट कर लूं तो आपने मुझे बताना है कि यार मैं नेक्स्ट कौन सा क्वेश्चन करूं. So now Hafiz basically has the address of the next task. कि यार सर आपने ये कर लिया, now you need to do this thing after this. So whatever that part of our computer which basically tells the CPU कि इसके बाद आपने क्या करना है, that is known as PC or program counter. अब सबसे पहले आपकी ये fetch execute cycle basically begins from PC, which basically stores the address of the next specific instruction. इसके बाद होता ये कि आपका जो address होता है ना in the program counter, it is copied to the MAR. So like आपके यहाँ पे एक address given होगा, maybe it is storing some address 010011, and 0011100, it is basically this is basically, just a minute. By the way, if anyone says anything wrong in the chat box, just let me know. Just raise your hand and I can remove it. Say, so now you have this address 0110011. say, and this is stored in your program counter. Now what if I want to execute this? Ab hota ye ki whatever address is stored in your program counter, this is basically transmitted into a register which we call as MAR. So MAR, known as memory address register, is a type of register जिसके अंदर आपके address copy किया जाता है, and then this allows your CPU to go to the memory and find that specific slot. So maybe it's like that person जिसको आप किसी नए मोहल्ले में जाते हो और आप उसको बोलते हो भाई यार मैंने स्ट्रीट नंबर 7 ढूंढनी है, can you help me with it? And then the person is on buying, he's like यार फॉलो करो मुझे. अब वो आपको स्ट्रीट 7 तक ले जाता है. अब उधर घर में खुद जाना है या घर में कोई चीज उधर से उठानी है, वो अब उसका काम नहीं है. So your MAR helps you with locating the specific address within the memory. सही है. So आपको हेल्प कर लेती है with that. सही. Now once you are done with MAR, अब आपने क्या करना है इसके बाद, your address is like you reach the point जहां पे आपने like this part allows you to reach the memory. So you reach the memory where you now have the specific game file or whatever file it is. And once you are done with this, अब आपने क्या करना है, आपने इस एड्रेस के ऊपर जो भी इंस्ट्रक्शन है, वालेकुम अस्सलाम, how are you doing? आपके जो भी यहाँ पे इंस्ट्रक्शन है, you need to copy that into one other sort of register which we call as MDR. MDR stands for memory data register. So like आप गए, उस बंदे ने आपको बोला यार स्ट्रीट नंबर 7 ये है, and आप गाड़ी अंदर लेकर गए, आप वो घर में देख लिया कि ओके यहाँ से मैंने पिकअप करना है, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह ऑल परफेक्ट, हाउ यू डूइंग, एंड आपने वहां से ना अपनी बुक्स उठा ली. सो ना जब आपने बुक्स उठा लिया, बुक तो आपने उस ड्राइवर को नहीं देने ना जिसने आपको रास्ता बताया, वो आप अपनी गाड़ी में रखोगे. सो द डेटा व्हिच यू टेक फ्रॉम दैट specific place is then stored in your memory data register. So your MDR stores the data. इसलिए the third one is going to be this, which is that the instruction is then copied from the memory location in the MAR and is placed in the MDR. समझ गए? Do exam, perfect. That's great to know. That's great to know. Boys, please. अच्छा, so अब जब हमने ये 3 स्टेप कर लिए, अब इसके बाद क्या होता है? इसके बाद basically you have to continue with, एक सेकंड, okay, let's continue. So अब आपने पहला कर लिया, आपने सेकंड कर लिया, don't worry, I've removed him. आपने पहला कर लिया, आपने दूसरा MAR के अंदर वो कर दिया. Now you have taken the data address and you put the data into a register known as MDR. Now what MDR does is, now you have the data, but now you need to take the data from your MDR to your CPU ka wo part which is basically dealing with the current execution. So you have a part in your CPU which is known as CIR. CIR stands for current instruction register. Now your data is stored in MDR, but we don't want the execution to be done outside CPU, right? So आपने MDR तो outside CPU. So what we do is कि हम यहाँ से data निकाल के जो हमारा वो वाला part है, like in simple words में ये बोलूँ कि आपने books उठा लिए and now आपने पढ़ना है. So now CIR is that point where you, like, it's like your table where you open the book and you start revising for your exam. So your CIR starts dealing with your current instruction which is being executed. इसलिए हमारा जो fourth होगा, which is this, that the entire instruction is then copied from the MDR and is then placed in the CIR. Now this process, इसको अगर आप इस तरह map बना के करें तो it's very easy. Say the part where you see that MAR stores the next address. एक second, बताता हूँ, दोनों बताता हूँ, easy. So let me just add those who are in the waiting list. So Hassan is saying, sir, I don't understand the part where you say the MAR stores the next address. Like, how does the CPU knows the next instruction if it's already dealing with it? Nice question, by the way. Hassan, what if I tell you that you are currently on whatever browser you're using, or maybe whatever app you're using? What if I say you might be making use of Google Chrome, say, and you have Google Chrome open up, and नीचे आपके पास ना WhatsApp की app भी installed है. WhatsApp की ऐप भी इंस्टॉल्ड है, एंड द मोमेंट यू क्लिक WhatsApp की ऐप, अब क्या हुआ? हाउ डज योर कंप्यूटर नो कि यार इस बंदे ने इसके बाद कोई और काम करना? नाउ व्हाट इफ एट दैट पॉइंट देयर इज समथिंग इंपॉर्टेंट गोइंग ऑन गूगल क्रोम, एंड आपके वो दरमियान में जब तक गूगल क्रोम के ऊपर वो टास्क कंप्लीट नहीं होता, आपका WhatsApp ओपन नहीं होगा, ड्यू टू विच वी हैव दोस डिलेज. अगर आपने देखा, आप फॉरन WhatsApp को ओपन करो तो आपका WhatsApp नहीं ओपन होता फॉरन, थोड़ा सा डिले आएगा, राइट? थोड़ा स्लाइड से डिले आएगा. जब वो डिले आता है तो क्या आपके ख्याल में से when it does not open immediately, does this request of opening WhatsApp vanishes? No. जो आपकी request होती है to open or do some other thing, the address of that request is basically stored in your program counter, which is a temporary sort of memory जो कि ये store कर देती है कि ओके इसके बाद अब आपने ये करना है. And so now when we are done with the Google Chrome वाले जो भी task, after we are done with that, now the program counter will be like, यार bro, when you were doing this part, उस दौरान there was a request to open WhatsApp too, and now you should go and execute that. So your program counter, which stores the address of the request, that now goes to the MAR and then it executes and your WhatsApp app is open. समझ गए? Is this clear now, Hassan? So we're playing game. The next action of an NPC is stored in the MAR. नहीं, जो आप गेम खेल रहे हो ना, गेम के दौरान आपकी, या यू कैन ऑल्सो टर्म इट दैट वे कि व्हाट इफ आई से कि अगर आपकी सारे फाइल्स एक टाइम, यूजुअली व्हाट हैपेंस इज कि आपके कंप्यूटर के रैम के अंदर ना ऑल द फाइल्स आर स्टोर्ड एट वंस, तो ऑल द फाइल्स, बट इफ आई एम लाइक ओके आपने एक फाइल को स्टोर करना है, अब जो आपने बोला है कि एनपीसी वाली बात इज नॉट वैलिड हियर. फॉर इंस्टेंस आपको मैं ये एग्जांपल दे दूं, क्योंकि एनपीसी वाली जो भी फाइल है आपकी गेम की एक ही फाइल है. So when your game is running, all the data related to NPC or whatever, that's within your CIR. But what if I tell you are playing game and at that point you want to maybe open up your settings, computer key settings, okay, computer key settings, not your game settings. So if you want to open something outside the game, and you press the setting buttons of your computer, तो आपकी वो सेटिंग स्क्रीन ओपन होगी, राइट? तो जो दरमियान में थोड़ा सा डिले आता है, या जो आप गेम रन करें उसी दौरान आपको कोई वो दरमियान में टेम्पररी स्टॉप आ जाए, या दैट स्पेसिफिक स्लॉट विच स्टोर्स कि यार जब आपके कंप्यूटर को मौका मिले टू रन द नेक्स्ट फंक्शन, तो वो क्या होना चाहिए, दैट इज बेसिकली स्टोर्ड इन योर प्रोग्राम काउंटर. समझ गए? जहां तक एनसीपी वाले की बात है, इट्स बेटर कि आप एनसीपी बिकॉज इट्स विद इन द गेम, तो एक फाइल के अंदर भी अगर आप करना चाहो तो यू कैन टर्म इट एज इन, अगर आप अंडरस्टैंडिंग के पर्पसेस के लिए करना चाहते हो तो डेफिनेटली आप ये बोल सकते हैं कि अगर एक चीज एट वन पॉइंट हो रही है एंड उसके बाद जो नेक्स्ट एक्शन जो भी हो गई है, व्हाटएवर द नेक्स्ट टास्क इज, दैट इज बेसिकली स्टोर्ड इन योर प्रोग्राम काउंटर. इज दिस क्लियर नाउ गाइस? फोकस ऑन सीएस. सारे सब्जेक्ट्स आसान है भाई, कुछ मुश्किल नहीं है. सही, अल्लाह खैर करेगा. हो गया सर. Perfect. So now we are done with this. Okay, so the other question was what is किधर गया? What is CIR? Inshallah, CIR is current instruction register. It is that part of your CPU जहाँ पे जो आपने अभी execution करनी होती है, whatever thing which you are trying to do, वो जहां पे एग्जीक्यूट हो रही होती है, दैट इज नोन एज करंट इंस्ट्रक्शन रजिस्टर. सो मतलब अगर आपके जहन में 1000 चीजें याद हो, एट दिस पॉइंट इफ यू आर डूइंग अ कंप्यूटर साइंस क्वेश्चन, सो योर CIR हैज द कंप्यूटर साइंस रिलेटेड मेमोरी ऑफ योर ब्रेन. समझ गए? यस इनाया, व्हाट वाज योर क्वेश्चन? यार सबके लिए आसान है. वी कैन हैव अ सेशन लेटर ऑन अबाउट लॉजिक गेट्स. व्हाट वाज योर क्वेश्चन? ओके. So we're going to do logic and then okay, yeah, we will. If not, don't worry, I can share logic gates के past paper recording with you. Don't worry. हम कर लेंगे. No, there is no CMR. It's CIR. Current instruction register. 15 marker का ये कि I will be uploading multiple. I'm going to see we have 7 days. अगर उसमें होता है तो well and good. If we don't have a 15 marker time to do 15 marker question, what we can do is कि हम उसकी रिकॉर्डिंग्स अपलोड कर देंगे लाइक फ्रॉम द प्रीवियस बैच, एंड इंशाल्लाह वो मैं यूट्यूब पे अपलोड कर दूंगा. बट स्टिल इफ यू फील लाइक यू नीड प्रैक्टिस विद 15 मार्कर्स एंड ऑल दैट, देन यू कैन ऑप्ट फॉर माय अपकमिंग कोर्स. उसके अंदर वी गोना बी डिटेल के अंदर हम सारे कॉन्सेप्ट्स भी पढ़ेंगे एंड उसके बाद वी गोना कंटिन्यू. यस अली, व्हाट वाज योर क्वेश्चन? सॉरी मैन, आई जस्ट लॉस्ट इट. No, we are only going to be doing past papers for till the next 7 days. From the 1st of December, we are going to be starting off officially with the course. So like all the way from chapter number 1, studying everything from the very basic level to doing past paper question. तो वो all full 4 months course होगा जिसमें सब पढ़ेंगे. सही है? You can join it through the link. वो मैं आपको भेज दूंगा इंशाल्लाह. I will be sharing the link in the group after class, तो आप लोग वो वहां से कर सकते हैं. Yes, I can also share my CS notes. आप लोग वो देख सकते हैं. कि पास पेपर्स कब होंगे? Guys, we have to see if we can make it to chapter 8. If not, तो फिर let's hope for the best. We will be having free classes maybe, but it's not something जो कि confirm है. But inshallah we will be holding classes. But still, if you guys feel like that you need support with computer science, I would recommend that you do opt for a course. We're going to study everything all the way from the base. So inshallah आपकी काफी अच्छी अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिल्डअप हो जाएगी. Continuing with the same thing, या शो में ग्रुप में भेज दूंगा नोट्स, डोंट वरी. Continuing with the same question, अब हमने ये देख लिया कि okay, your CIR now stores the most recent data. अब इसके बाद क्या होता है? इसके बाद ये होता है कि यार जब आपके CIR के अंदर डेटा चला जाता है ना, now you tell the computer कि okay यार मेरे पास यहाँ पे डेटा आ गया, मेरे पास डेटा यहाँ पे आ गया. नाउ आई टेल द पर्सन जो कि मेरे नेक्स्ट टास्क को होल्ड करेगा कि लाइक अब मैं मैथ्स के क्वेश्चंस कर रहा हूँ, जब मैं मैथ्स के सॉरी सीएस के क्वेश्चन कर रहा हूँ, तो अब अगर मेरे पीछे कोई मुझे आवाज देना चाहता है कि यार बास तुमने गेम भी खेलनी है, लेकिन बाहर एक बंदा बैठा है जो कि बोल रहा हो कि ओके मास जब फ्री होगा तो मैं उसको तब बताऊंगा. So that's my program counter which stores the next address, right? So whenever the data goes into CIR, what I do is कि मैं अपने program counter को increment कर देता हूँ. इंक्रीमेंट का मतलब ये हुआ कि आई टेल द प्रोग्राम काउंटर कि ओके यार जो आपके अंदर जो भी डेटा था, आई हैव अंडरस्टूड दैट पार्ट, आई हैव अंडरस्टूड दैट पार्ट, एंड नाउ यू शुड लुक फॉर एनी फर्दर इंस्ट्रक्शन कि जब मैं ये काम करूं तो इसके बाद मुझे क्या करना चाहिए, उसके लिए आप डेटा स्टोर करने लग जाओ. सो दिस इज माय पॉइंट नंबर 5 दैट द वैल्यू इन द पीसी इज इंक्रीमेंटेड सो दैट इट पॉइंट्स टू द नेक्स्ट इंस्ट्रक्शन टू बी फेच, व्हिच बेसिकली मींस कि यार इसके बाद जो भी मैंने काम करना है, जो भी मैंने काम करना है वो आप यहाँ पे स्टोर कर दो. सो व्हेन आई एम डन विद व्हाटएवर आई एम डूइंग विद इन द सीआईआर, आपके प्रोग्राम काउंटर डायरेक्टली जैसे ही आपका सीआईआर का काम हो जाए उसके बाद नेक्स्ट टास्क को पॉइंट करे कि नाउ यू शुड गो एंड गेट एड्रेस ऑफ दैट पार्ट. समझ गए? नाउ वंस वी आर डन विद दैट, अब आपके डी कोड का पार्ट स्टार्ट, व्हिच बेसिकली मींस एग्जीक्यूशन का पार्ट स्टार्ट हो. जब आप एग्जीक्यूट कैसे कराओगे, डेफिनेटली यार आपकी वही बात है कि आपने इसके बाद ये द एड्रेस पार्ट ऑफ द इंस्ट्रक्शन इफ एनी इज प्लेस्ड इन द एमएआर डन, एंड फाइनली ये कि यार जो भी आपके इंस्ट्रक्शन होगी उसको डी कोड कर दिया जाएगा एंड उसको एग्जीक्यूट कर दिया जाएगा. And this is the whole process. And once your process is decoded and executed, the process is going to repeat. वो फिर जाएगा आप अपने प्रोग्राम काउंटर में, let's say whatever the next function was, यहाँ से जाके वो फिर रिपीट हो जाएगा, फिर होगा and it's going to continue just like that. No, that will be paid. You can registration form पे सारी details है, आप वहां से सब चेक कर लेना, आपको अच्छे से समझ आ जाएगा. सही है? Okay, explain incrementing. Okay. So incrementing basically refers to guys, अपनी दोस्तियों वाली बात है. आई कैन टर्न ऑफ द चैट बॉक्स एंड आई वांट कि आप लोग ये कि पीपल आर जस्ट ज्वाइनिंग इन. लेट मी जस्ट टर्न द सेटिंग ऑफ. एक सेकंड, मैंने ओपन टू ऑल कर दिया. ओके, नेवर माइंड. सो इंक्रीमेंट बेसिकली मींस कि यार हमारे प्रोग्राम काउंटर हैज दिस वन फंक्शन कि प्रोग्राम काउंटर की लेट्स से वैल्यू है 1, एंड व्हेन इट हैज द वैल्यू 1 ये स्टोर कर रहा है लेट्स से एक एड्रेस 011011. Now, when I get the data, सही है, into CIR, when the data goes into CIR, which basically means कि ये जो address है, इसका जो data है that goes into my CIR, what CIR does is कि ये increment कर देता है program counter. Increment means +1. So my program counter now let's say have the value 2. When it has the value 2, now it basically has the permission कि यार अगर कोई और आपने टास्क एग्जीक्यूट करना है तो उसका एड्रेस यहाँ पे बता दो, which may be like अगर इसके बाद मैंने कोई डाउनलोड करना हो तो डाउनलोड करने का 110011 एक वो आगे वो इसके अंदर स्टोर है. सो द मोमेंट आई एम डन विद सीआईआर के टास्क नंबर 1 के एग्जीक्यूशन, योर प्रोग्राम काउंटर के अंदर जो भी डेटा दैट इज गोना गो इनटू सीआईआर, एंड वंस दैट गोज इन देयर आपका प्रोग्राम काउंटर अगेन इंक्रीमेंट हो जाता है, व्हिच इंडिकेट्स कि ओके यार आपका जो भी डेटा इसके अंदर था दैट इज नाउ इन द करंट इंस्ट्रक्शन रजिस्टर, एंड इट बेसिकली इंडिकेट्स कि यार इसके बाद जो भी टास्क है you are now free. And आप अब देखो यार अगर there is any other task which I might require to do after this part of doing task number 2 की execution. So incrementing का basically मतलब ये होता है नहीं कैलकुलेटर्स आप ना पेपर 1 में यूज कर सकते हैं ना पेपर 2 में. सही है? ओके सो ओके यार एक सेकंड, दोस्त की कॉल आ रही है. never mind. So the thing here to note is that whenever we say increment, you should get to know this one point कि incrementing refers to how you now allow program counter to look for other tasks जो कि जब मैं करंट इंस्ट्रक्शन रजिस्टर में जो भी टास्क करूं वो खत्म हो जाए तो उसके बाद जो भी अगला टास्क हो उसका एड्रेस डायरेक्टली मैं प्रोग्राम काउंटर से अपने अंदर कॉपी कर सकूं. एंड अब प्रोग्राम काउंटर को ये कैसे पता लगेगा कि यार जो मेरे अंदर डेटा था वो सीआईआर के अंदर चला गया? By it getting incremented. So the moment it gets incremented, आपका वो directly program counter को पता लग जाता है कि okay, my previous data is now in CIR and now I should look for new task. Now is this clear? नहीं, you don't have to memorize any of the 1101 thing. वो वैसी है. I'll be sharing the notes in my IGCSE computer science group. If you guys are not in it, तो let me know. I can share the link to it. सही है? एंड करने से पहले मुझे बता देना. I can share the link and आप वहां से कर लेना. No, I do not teach. I am a student my own. I'm a freshman at LAMS. Thank you, Afsar. So now continuing with the same question, now this part, question number 3 is basically talking about MAR and MDR. It says that a section of computer memory is shown below. ये हमारे पास addresses हैं, सही है, ये addresses हैं, and then these are content, which basically means कि यार जब आपका जो address number 1000001 है, उस point पे जब आप memory में जाओगे, आपका ये data store है. Now it is saying कि यार the content of memory location this are to be read. You need to just show कि यार MAR के अंदर क्या जाएगा and MDR के अंदर क्या जाएगा. So I just told you कि यार MAR आपका वो वाला बंदा है. Thank you for sharing that, Rafi. MAR आपको वो वाला बंदा है जो आपको बताता है कि यार मेमोरी के अंदर ये एड्रेस आपके ये जो स्ट्रीट 7 में हाउस नंबर 45A ढूंढना है वो आपका ये है. So basically MAR stores the address. So in this scenario it is saying that the content of memory location this are to be read, which basically means that this is my address. So जो मेरा address होगा that will be stored in MAR. So I'm just going to be copying this and I'll be writing that up here 10000001 and you're going to get 1 mark for this. The second part says कि यार अब इसी point के ऊपर data क्या stored है, तो for that you have this table. अब हमने यहाँ पे देखना है कि यार 10000001 कहाँ पे. So these are your addresses. You're just going to look for the equivalent address. So 10000001 is this, right? अब इसके ऊपर contents के अंदर क्या stored है? This is my data. This is my data, and I already told you that the data is going to be stored in MDR. So what I'm going to be doing is कि मैं इसको copy करके MDR में लिख दूँगा. So 01010001, and you get 1 mark for this too, getting you a total 2/2. समझ गए? All right. So yeah, guys, I don't have time. So for loop में 1 2 variable कर सकते. Yeah, I guess you can do that. Yes, you can do that. Lekin it's not recommended, but yes, you can do that. See? Chalo, let's continue. That's great to know, yaar. Rayan, that's great to know. Next part says that the value 00011100 is to be written into memory location this, which basically means that ye jo part hai, this is my data, and I need to write this into this location, which is my address. So जो मेरा address है वो MAR के अंदर होगा, जो मेरा data होगा that's going to go into MDR. So I'm just going to be writing this up here 10001110, and this is going to go into MDR 01111001, and I'm going to get perfect 2 for this too. So you see these are like some easy marks which you guys should not be messing out on. Another important thing is कि आपको ये भी पता होना चाहिए कि क्या कहते हैं, नो भाई क्या कह रहे हो. Guys, just focus on the class. I would appreciate that. Otherwise, I have to turn off the chat box. Can you repeat MDR wala kisa? Yeah, sure. So MDR basically stores the data. Say आपके MDR यार. So my friend, उसने अपने फोन को यहाँ पे चार्जिंग पे लगाया हुआ है and उसकी कॉल्स यहाँ पे मुझे आ रही हैं. Just a minute. Never mind. Silent पे कर दिया. So MAR stores your address. उस एड्रेस के ऊपर जाके आपका जो भी डेटा स्टोर होगा ना, डेटा whatever data is stored at a specific address, that's stored in your MDR. So if I say that you need to go to house number 76 in, let's say, sector 2, say, and वहां से आपने उठानी है books, so the address is basically going to go into MAR. And whatever the data at that specific address is, which is books in this case, this is going to go into MDR. So your MDR basically stores the data. समझ गए? So the value is this, which means this is my data. So whatever the data is, वो आपके MDR के अंदर जाएगा. समझ गए? And जो भी आपके जिस point पे store हो रहा है, that is my address. So address is going to go into MAR. Now is it clear? Khan Sanan, is it clear now? नहीं, MAR means memory address register. Memory address register. And MDR basically means memory data register. अच्छा, नहीं समझ आ रहा, फिर से समझा देता हूँ. अच्छा, आप यहाँ पे देखो यार, मैं आपको एक बात बोलता हूँ यार. आप जा रहे हो, आपके पास कंप्यूटर है या आपका हार्ड डिस्क है, इसके अंदर आपका हाउस नंबर लेट से 1 2 3 है, या बल्कि इस तरह भी नहीं, इसको थोड़ा बड़ा सा बना देना. आपने जाना है अपने कजन के घर जिसका घर नंबर है हाउस नंबर 23. ये आपके कजन का घर है, सही है. एंड एट द सेम टाइम उस घर के एड्रेस के ऊपर जब आप जाओगे ना, तो वहां पे कुछ डेटा आपको मिलेगा. and that data is maybe like books. सही है. अब आप कंप्यूटर, आप एक बंदे हो which is like you are a CPU, you are a CPU. आपको उसको प्रोसेस करना है. So you need to go get the books and you need to process that. अब आप करोगे क्या? You need to firstly go to that specific address, right? आप उसके घर जाओगे उसके बुक्स लेने के लिए. आपको उसके घर जाना पड़ेगा. अब घर जाने के लिए जो आपको गाइड करेगा दैट रजिस्टर, जिसके अंदर यार जब हम गूगल मैप्स पे एड्रेस टाइप इन करते हैं ना, सो आपको एक रास्ता बताने के लिए जो एक रजिस्टर कंप्यूटर्स के अंदर एग्जिस्ट करता है ना, दैट इज नोन एज MAR. So your MAR is that register which stores address. So it is that part of your computer जो कि आपको ये बोलते हैं कि ओके अब आपने इस पॉइंट पे जाना है. डोंट वरी, डोंट वरी, आपने एड्रेस मुझे बता देना. सो यू द CPU टेल्स MAR द एड्रेस, एंड फिर MAR गाड़ी का ड्राइवर बन जाता है एंड वो आपको इधर से उधर से इधर से उधर से उधर से इधर इसके घर ले आता है. अब MAR कहता है कि भाई मैं ड्राइवर हूं, मैंने आपको घर तक पहुंचा दिया. अब जो बुक्स उठा के आपने रखनी है, उनको पढ़ना है, वो मेरा काम नहीं है, वो ड्राइवर का काम नहीं है, वो अब आपका काम है. अब जब डेफिनेटली, अब आप मुझे एक बात बताओ, आपने बुक्स तो ले ली लेकिन आप उसके घर के सामने डायरेक्ट पढ़ने तो नहीं बैठ जाओगे ना. आप बुक्स उठा के अपने घर लाओगे व्हिच इज CPU. अब आप अपने घर जब बुक्स ला रहे होंगे तो वो आप कैसे लाओगे? उसके लिए लेट्स से हम बोल दे आप अपने साथ एक बॉक्स लेकर गए व्हिच इज बेसिकली देयर टू कैरी द बुक्स. सो द बुक्स आर बेसिकली स्टोर्ड इन वन अनदर रजिस्टर जो कि आपके डेटा को ट्रांसफर करता है फ्रॉम दैट एड्रेस टू द CPU. एंड इस बस जो कि ये जो रास्ते के अंदर जो बॉक्स होगा, दैट इज व्हाट वी कॉल एज MDR, सो मेमोरी डेटा रजिस्टर, एंड इट बेसिकली स्टोर्स द डाटा ऑफ दैट स्पेसिफिक एड्रेस. तो मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ कि आपके एक एड्रेस है, उस एड्रेस के ऊपर जो भी आपका डेटा होगा, दैट डेटा इज गोइंग टू बी स्टोर्ड इन योर MDR, एंड उस पॉइंट का जो भी एड्रेस होगा दैट इज गोइंग टू बी स्टोर्ड इन MAR. नाउ इज इट क्लियर? यस, बिल्कुल. आप ये समझ लो अली कि MAR रोड की तरह, MAR आपको गाइड कर रहा है, उस जगह तक लेकर जा रहा है जहां पे डेटा पड़ा हुआ है. एंड देन MDR क्या करते हैं? MDR उस जगह के ऊपर डेटा उठा के अपने साथ ले जाते हैं. परफेक्ट. नाउ दैट्स ग्रेट टू नो. तो बैक टू द क्वेश्चन. नाउ आपके पास चैप्टर 3 के ऐसे काफी क्वेश्चंस आएंगे जिसके अंदर दे गोना गिव यू सम कंप्यूटर टर्म एंड यू शुड बी वेल अवेयर ऑफ द डिस्क्रिप्शन. नाउ पोस्ट 2023 you can also be asked of a question where they might tell you define words ALU. So do memorize these definition. It's really important. समझ के? So now what's ALU? ALU is basically that part of your computer which basically deals with execution of addition, multiplication or any mathematical functions. So any stuff जो कि आपके maths के related चीजें deal करते हैं, because mathematics comes from the word arithmetic. अब arithmetic के अंदर आ जाते हैं plus, minus, divide, multiply, all these functions. एक आपके ALU इन functions के साथ deal करते हैं. What if I'm like okay, आपने 2 + 2 करना है. सर मैंने तो बस अभी 3 चैप्टर किए, कोई नहीं, you can watch your free. Guys, I have to remove you guys if you don't focus, please. So yeah, I'll start with that. See, we don't have a lot of time. We just need to finish the questions. So continuing with where we left. So आपकी ALU is that part of your CPU which is basically going to be dealing with arithmetic, which basically means doing function related to addition, subtraction, division and multiplication, and at the same time logic. Logic का ये मतलब है कि यार मैं बोलूँ 2 + 2 and the answer should be greater than 50. So like and, और या मैं बोलूं यार age is greater than 18 और age is greater than 5 और function. इस तरह के आपके multiple जो and और logic वाले हैं, all these functions are basically done by ALU. So we're going to be looking for ALU वाली चीजें. Data can be read but not ordered. Okay, नहीं. Carries out operations such as addition and multiplication. Yes, बिल्कुल. This is one of the right points. सही. Then अगला one is saying कि okay, stores bootstrap, loader and BIOS, no, not of ALU. Fetches each instruction in turn, no. Carries out operations such as and or not, yep, बिल्कुल. This means हमारा ये तो हो गया, दोनों पार्ट हो गया, arithmetic भी हो गया, logic भी हो गया. Next is control unit. Control unit करता क्या? Control unit basically it fetches each instruction in turn and फिर उसको execute करता है. So that part of your computer which basically deals with यार अब अगले पार्ट को लाओ मेरे पास, उसको मैं अब execute करता हूँ, that is done by control unit. So we're going to be looking up क्या यहाँ पे कोई हमारे पास ऐसे option है? Yes, एक तो ये कि control unit is this, fetches each instruction in turn, and then it is like और कौन से manages execution of each instruction too. So it can also go up here. Now you might be wondering, sir, why are you drawing 2 lines? Because in the question it says draw lines. Lines is plural. अब उन्होंने आपको ये नहीं बोला कि भाई आप सिंगल लाइन. हफ्सा, प्लीज 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 क्विक नोट्स मिल जाएंगे रिवीजन के लिए? या देयर आर नो क्विक नोट्स. आई ऑलवेज से दिस, यू हैव टू इंश्योर कि आप प्रॉपर सिलेबस को गो थ्रू करें. If you're trying to go through smaller notes thinking it's going to cover the whole course, it's not going to work. Yes, I will be sharing my notes after the class, but if you guys want, I would 100% recommend that you all should opt for my upcoming course. We'll be offering a free demo class, तो उसके अंदर आप अच्छे से सब कुछ समझ लेंगे. Guys, I guess you all are friends together, so please थोड़ा सा आराम से. So अब अगला हमारे पास आ गया रैम का. अब व्हाट्स रैम? रैम इज दैट पार्ट ऑफ योर कंप्यूटर जिसके अंदर जो भी आप करंटली चीज को एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे हो ना, उसके रिलेटेड जो भी डेटा होगा वो आपके रैम में स्टोर होता है. सो व्हाट इफ आई टेल यू कि यार अभी आपने RDR2 गेम खेलनी है, सो ऑल द फाइल्स ऑफ योर RDR2 आर बेसिकली स्टोर्ड इन रैम. तो इसीलिए जब आपके कंप्यूटर के अंदर रैम फुल हो जाती है तो इसका ये मतलब होता है आपका कंप्यूटर हैंग हो जाता है. व्हाई हैंग? इस वजह से हो जाता है क्योंकि आपके रैम के अंदर वो स्पेस नहीं होती. एंड व्हाटएवर डेटा यू आर ट्राइंग टू एग्जीक्यूट राइट नाउ, दैट इज बेसिकली स्टोर्ड विद इन रैम. सो the answer to that basically lies in this part: stores part of the operating system currently in use, and it also stores data that is currently in use. जो भी currently use हो रहा होता है उसके related whatever the data or part of the operating system is, that is basically stored in RAM. And then there is one thing known as ROM, जो कि आप लोग usually सुना होगा. 32 GB RAM, नहीं 32 GB नहीं, 6 GB RAM and maybe 8 GB ROM or stuff like that. What's ROM? ROM is that part of your computer which stores data related to BIOS. जब आप maybe computer on करते हो, and guys, Ali and Hafsa, this is the last warning. Otherwise, I'm going to be removing the two of you. See? So now, BIOS is that part. Okay, I'm explaining. BIOS is basically the acronym for Basic Input Output System. So जब आप कंप्यूटर के ऊपर पावर ऑन बटन दबाते हो, आपके कंप्यूटर को कैसे पता लग जाता है कि ओके यार दिस पर्सन इज ट्राइंग टू लोड विंडोज. अब आप नया कंप्यूटर जब लेते हो उसके अंदर आपके पास रैम नहीं होती, सॉरी कोई विंडोज नहीं इंस्टॉल होती, कोई ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम नहीं होता. So you need to install window. But once you install window, how does your computer know that when you press that turn on button or button on your computer, it should load that window? Basically your BIOS or the firmware that gets updated कि यार जब भी कंप्यूटर ऑन हो आपने ये कर लेना है. यार ये कंप्यूटर साइंस इज रिलेटेड टू ICT टू सम एक्सटेंट, सो आपका कोर्स इंटरलिंक करता रहता है. सो योर ROM बेसिकली स्टोर्स डेटा रिलेटेड टू बेसिक इनपुट आउटपुट सिस्टम और योर फर्मवेयर, व्हिच बेसिकली मींस कि जब आपने कंप्यूटर को लोड करना होता है या कोई वो वाली चीजें तो वो आपके ROM में होता है. नाउ इफ वी रीड इट यू गोना सी दैट स्टोर्स बूटस्ट्रैप लोडर एंड BIOS. तो ये तो क्लियर कट पॉइंट हमारे पास ये आ गया कि जो आपने बूट अप करने कंप्यूटर किया उसके रिलेटेड जो भी चीजें वो यहाँ पे स्टोर होंगी. एंड दैट इज वन पॉइंट. एंड सेकंड एक पॉइंट आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि हमारे बाकी तो सारे हो गए, ये रह गए. इस पॉइंट का भी यही आंसर है कि ROM has this one possibility नहीं, has this one quality that is ROM part of SSD. आता हूं to that question. Good. Hassan, I'm coming to that question. ROM has that one quality, it cannot be changed. आपके ROM के अंदर जो वैल्यूज ओरिजिनली ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम सेट कर लेता है, दैट्स सेट. आप अपने ROM के डेटा को नहीं चेंज कर सकते. दिस इज इंपॉर्टेंट. तो ROM के जो डेटा दैट कैन ओनली बी रेड बट इट कैन नॉट बी ऑल्टर्ड. Now coming to the question raised by Rafi, its job is to start the computer. बिल्कुल perfect Rafi, ऐसा ही है, यही है. Then Hassan is saying, is ROM part of the SSD or is it just part of it, or is it completely? It is completely different. You have two types of memory. I would recommend go watch my recorded lectures for chapter number 3. उसके अंदर आपको पता लग जाएगा कि memory has two basically types. उसके अंदर आपके पास primary secondary memory आ जाती है. Primary and secondary memory. And within that primary and secondary memory, you're going to see कि जो आपके hard disk and SSDs है, they come under secondary memory. And जो आपकी primary memory है, इनके अंदर आपके पास आ जाते हैं RAM and then ROM. अब जो ROM आपके पास आता है ना, that ROM is basically totally different from your hard disk and SSD. It's like a different type of memory. तो वो बिल्कुल ही इससे अलग है, and it has a different sort of purpose. Non-volatile. बिल्कुल. It stores the data. It does not loses it. Volatile or non-volatile का difference is again something जो कि lectures के अंदर detail में discussed है. You guys can check that out. So we have the last 5 minutes and we have to do काफी ज़्यादा question है, but let's do this question. Question number 4 says, to process an instruction, a CPU goes through the cycle that has 3 main stages. So आपके जब भी 3 cycles के अंदर, this cycle is referring to fetch, execute cycle जो कि हमने अभी पढ़ा है. लेकिन अब आप बोल रहे होगे कि सर एक तो मुझे पता है कि यार पहला वाला हो जाएगा fetch, आखिरी वाला हो जाएगा execute, दरमियान में क्या हो रहा है? तो दरमियान में remember, whenever you have a function or task, you have a request, then you have the execution. But then your computer also has to make sense of whatever you're trying to do, right? So that sense is basically known as decoding. So it's like fetch, decode, execute. And that's the purpose and how you basically ensure your computer executes the whole thing. I can share the link, just a minute. The name of the channel is Code Catalyst. You can also reach out to us on our Instagram. मैं उसकी link भी भेज देता हूँ. Do follow that, and उसमें आपको काफी अच्छी resources मिल जाएंगी. Ani, we do not have a paper 2 playlist on our channel yet, but we will be sharing more content over time, inshallah. As for the 15 markers, I will be sharing some videos on the channel. तो उसके ऊपर आपको अच्छा खासा वो मिल जाएगा. But if you need help with paper 2, I would again recommend, until or unless it's a minute concept and you really need help with a specific part, आपको YouTube के solution देखने से फायदा नहीं होना. You need to build up your programming skills all the way from the base. So it's important that you go from the very start and slowly move on towards understanding the concept right way. समझ गए? So now question number 5 and last 3 minutes. So it's saying that signals are sent to and from the components of processor bus. अब हमने 2 बस बताने और उनका purpose बताने. 6 marks, which basically means 3 for this and 3 for this. So you can write any of them. You can go with address bus, you can go with data bus, whatever you want. So what if I want to do address bus? So I can be like, okay, I'm going to write address up here, address bus. And what's the purpose of the address bus? It is basically to do what? To store or to, not to store, sorry, to carry or transport an address of a specific location. So हम ये लिख लेते हैं, it carries the address of a specific word, of a specific maybe location or an address of a specific location. Say ये तो एक पॉइंट हो गया. अब एक मार्क आपको इसका मिल गया, एक आपको इसका मिल गया. एक पॉइंट आप वो लिख सकते हैं, इट कैन बी एड्रेस बस इज यूनिडायरेक्शनल. एड्रेस बस is unidirectional. One statement, 1 mark, and you're going to get a perfect 3 on 3 for this. The second one can be anything. So maybe I go with database. अब database का मैं यही same to same ही लिखूंगा. It carries data. It carries data between different components of the computer. Between different components of the computer. Components of the computer. And secondly, ये लिख लूंगा कि database is bidirectional. And you're going to get a perfect 6 on 6 for this. Now coming to your questions, okay, Python में लगे, I would recommend go with pseudocode, because जब आप pseudocode की practice करोगे, आपके जो 15 मार्कर से पिछले जितने questions होते हैं, those are all in pseudocode. So आपने वो तो वैसे भी Python में करनी नहीं है. So if you want to practice pseudocode, तो आप जो previous questions के practice करेंगे, that is also going to help you with 15 marker. Otherwise, you have to practice pseudocode separately for the initial 60 marker paper, and then you need to practice Python separately for the 15 marker. So I would recommend go with pseudocode, because eventually if you also plan on taking AS computer science A levels, उसके अंदर भी AS के अंदर आपको total pseudocode ही लिखनी होगी, तो it's not going to help you there. So I would recommend go with pseudocode. Okay, okay, you want to take screenshot? Okay, of course, yellow. Really? Yeah, paper 2 is very easy. It's just the 15 marker question is a bit difficult. Uske baghair, it's very, very easy. See? Now question number 6, and then we're just going to end it. Name 3 different buses that are used in the fetch execute cycle. 3 ही buses आपकी course में, उसमें से आपने लिख देनी. Address bus, control bus, data bus. And you're going to get 3 marks. Easy number, see? And then this says the part of the CPU that carries out calculation. तो अभी हमने क्या पढ़ा था कि आपके पास वो कौन सा part होता है which deals with arithmetic calculations? ALU. So आपने ये बोलना है Selma is describing ALU, which is basically bracket के अंदर पूरा बता देना arithmetic and logic unit. And you are going to get marks for this. 2. This marks the end of the whole document, जिसके अंदर we did like 6-7 questions pretty comprehensively. अच्छे खासे हमने कर लिए. And With that, we are done with today's class. Alhamdulillah, it's 10:01. Tomorrow we will be having class at same time, and inshallah हम अच्छे खासे तरीके से we did 6 questions. The recording will be uploaded, and yes, I can share the document in the group. Yes, Junaid, do you have a question, or if anybody wants to ask any question? By the way, I can also share the notes. हमारे notes कुछ इस तरह होते हैं, by the way. So these are my notes. How do you screen share? Yeah, window. So yeah. These were some notes from the topic 10. ये हम past paper questions कर रहे थे topic 10 के. So काफी हमारे details से रुको इसको full screen कर देता हूँ. So you see, ये हम chapter 3 का थोड़ा सा left over part है. This was like all chapter number 9. And इस तरीके से if you look up here, we did a lot of 50 marker questions too. So if you tend to join our course upcoming, तो इंशाल्लाह उसमें हम काफी detail में सब कुछ पढ़ेंगे इस तरीके से. You can have a look at these notes. Functions हमने declare किए थे, and like the whole course was being taught in like around 295 pages. In the bottom left you can see, and then we did multiple questions too separately. But you see कि आपका इस तरीके से if you want to understand paper 2 the right way, you need to go from the base. So हमने pseudocode start किया, and then we went all the way from what conditional statements are to what loops are, what functions are, how do you make use of each of them. We did multiple examples, उनको properly हमने analyze किया. When you analyze everything that way, then you're going to understand how to do the whole part. Yes, Junaid, what question? लॉजिक गेट्स के नोट्स ओके. लॉजिक गेट ये नोट्स मैं आपको भेज ही दूंगा, आप लोग आराम से देख लेना. लॉजिक गेट हैज टू बी द मोस्ट इजीएस्ट पार्ट आउट देयर. लाइक लॉजिक गेट्स इज लिटरली दैट वन टॉपिक जो कि बहुत आसान है. सो यहाँ पे लॉजिक गेट्स कहाँ पे है? या लॉजिक गेट्स. सो ये हमने पढ़े थे. आई डोंट नो, अगर आप लेक्चर देखो उसके अंदर काफी अच्छे से आपको समझ आ जाएगा. वी डाइसेक्टेड ईच ऑफ द गेट, अंडरस्टूड व्हाट ईच ऑफ देम हैज टू for a computer, and then can you please share the registration form in the group? Yeah, of course I will share it, don't worry. मैं share कर लेता हूँ. Junaid, do you have a question? You said you can type it in the chat box just like that. हमारे काफी वो है. So I will share the notes if you guys want to have a look at it, and I will also share the registration form. You guys can fill that out, and the Conceptual Academy TA will reach out to you. Sure, एक second. Let me end the recording, and then